Hello and welcome to another Paolo Project Training Podcast. My name's Paul Naybour and with me is Tom O'Shea. Hello, Tom.
Hello.
So we're working our way through the PPQ assessment criteria. I'm actually starting with probably one of the largest topics in the whole course, which is 1.1, which is to do with governance. So the assessment criteria is to critically evaluate appropriate structures, hierarchies for a project to ensure it aligns with the organisation's structure and are based on the life cycle to be employed. There's quite a lot in this one, isn't there, Tom?
Yes, there certainly is. So you've got a number of things in here that you have to try and unpick and think about. The main things in here are aligning with the organization structure and the life cycle that you are using in the project, which is going to be given to you in the case study. So you'll know if it's a linear life cycle or an iterative, or in other words, the common language, the agile life cycle.
Okay, but could you propose a different approach?
Given that the project is underway, it's probably not.
Okay, to have a strong reason why you might say, well, I think this would be better managed as an iterative life cycle.
Yeah, it might be that moving forward, if you see that it's being managed as a linear project, but the nature of what we're doing would lend itself to further development in an iterative way, then you could, in effect, introduce iterative by stealth.
Or explicitly.
or if you wanted to, you could introduce it explicitly, but bear in mind where the project is.
Yeah.
So it's likely that you are already encountering problems. You already have a project that's running late, probably over budget. So is that the right time to start formally training people in what Agile is all about?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting comment. So let's just unpick this a little bit more. So it's interesting, the references to the 7th edition of Body of Knowledge in the syllabus are quite useful hints here, hints and tips really. So critically evaluate appropriate structures. So what does that mean? When they say appropriate structures and hierarchies.
Okay. Well, there are two ways you could look at it. You could consider the organization structure in the context of project program portfolio. So it's likely that the case study project you're working on is part of a wider program. You could try to think about making a case for extracting it from the program if it's relevant, or to alter it in some other kind of way. But it's probably more appropriate to think about it in terms of the hierarchy and structure of the broader organization. Yeah. So where are your project team coming from? How has this been set up? Because you've walked into a project that is already underway. So how has it been set up? Do you have a dedicated project team, or does it seem like the project work is being shared out amongst relevant people who are contributing their own little bits of skill? Or is there a sort of a team that are assigned, but also are trying to do some day work as well? Yeah. So in other words, what we're looking at is it a functional, is it a project, or is it a matrix structure?
And should it stay that way, or do you think we might propose that it might transition to a different structure?
Well, that's what the assessment criteria is looking for you to do.
Because you're critically evaluating here.
Because you're critically evaluating, so you've got to have a think about what are probably two ways in which I could structure this team moving forward.
Yeah, I think in this one it's not too bad because you usually got like, well, I could just leave it as it is, or I could move to something else.
Yeah, with this, and we'll no doubt be saying it again in future criteria, just be a little bit careful about what is in effect a do nothing option, because I'll just leave it as it is sounds like do nothing.
Okay.
And therefore, why are we, what is there to evaluate you on in terms of your capability and competence?
Maybe, maybe I would say I will maintain the matrix structure that currently exists.
Yeah, but I'll put some more control and discipline around it in terms of how it's set up.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so yes, certainly the existing structure seems to be the right one, but it needs this or it needs that to it. Yeah. And you should be able to extract from the case study the things that would help to improve the application and management of that structure.
So in a matrix organization, often the problem is people are assigned to the project, but you don't actually have any agreement about how much time or effort that they're going to commit to it, or or they're doing too many projects all at the same time. So you might say, we'll maintain existing matrix structure, but we need to reinforce the time that the team will dedicate to this project within their overall.
More formally set it up. You have the classic problem in a matrix structure of somebody trying to report to two bosses effectively. So if there isn't the liaison between the project manager and the line manager, then the poor old project team member is getting pulled left, right, and centre. So that's part of introducing something that is more formally agreed with the line manager as to how much time as a PM I'm looking for from your person's available time.
Yeah, so that's the sort of structural choices and temporary structures. Governance is another, how should the governance be set up here? I think this is really important. Actually, we were just working with a client and they don't have any governance structure at all in their organisation. So we just had to come up with a governance structure for them. So I think here you got some clear options, sponsor, project manager, partnership, just a really simple one-to-one governance structure. Or do you need a project board or steering group? And who should be on that steering group? Any other choices here?
That could start to come into this one, but you need to be a little bit careful that you don't creep into the next assessment criterion.
Yeah, about roles and responsibilities.
That's about roles and responsibilities and levels of authority and accountability.
Yeah.
So this one is more specifically about the organization structure. So how am I going to set up my teams within the project?
Okay.
And in terms of the options, the three that we've talked through are the obvious ways of approaching it. You only have to provide two options. So, you just want to stick to those two options. But as with this and any other topic, the important thing is you don't just describe what functional is, what matrix is, and what a project team is. Okay, that's knowledge. That's at PMQ level. Within this one, you have to go on to the specific reasons for adopting the approach that you're going to take within this case study. Now, this is a written report question. So by this stage, you'll have gone through the first two parts of the process. So you should already be familiar with and in the habit of giving recommendations when it's evaluate. But in this particular case, you're going to have to write out your thoughts and ideas around the two kinds of structures that you think could be adopted here, and then make your recommendation on which one you're going to propose to the sponsor to implement.
We haven't touched on life cycle because you've got a choice about understanding what the life cycle is here. I expect you need to identify what life cycle they're currently following.
Yeah.
And what steps you need to do to reinforce or maybe change that life cycle approach.
Yes. So given the life cycle that you've are told that is being adopted here, that can influence the kind of project structure you're going to put in place.
Yeah.
So
would you recommend people recommend a different life cycle from the one in the case study?
The focus of this particular assessment criterion is around the structure of the team within the project. Now, it might be that you recognize that moving forward from this point onwards, it would be more appropriate to adopt a different kind of life cycle. So maybe things have been done so far in a linear way, and you think the nature of the product we're developing could be more iterative. So I might want to think about that as part of the way in which I'm going to set up my structure. And that might be part of the reasoning why you're proposing a particular option.
Yeah.
So I think, if you could make the case that moving forward, the life cycle that's been applied so far has been relevant, but I would see it I would envisage it evolving, and therefore I'm going to structure my team around what I see happening over the coming weeks in terms of the way the product's going to be developed.
Yeah,
and good. So I would see that we would need to move towards more iterative approach, and therefore I suggest this particular team structure.
Very good. So let's just move on to the next one, which is about establishing roles and responsibilities. Critically evaluate why and how to establish roles and responsibilities and relationships within a project, ensuring authority and accountability accepted by individuals within the project team. So this has got two elements, hasn't it? It's about establishing those roles and responsibilities, and then acceptance. I imagine people are quite good at the establishing bit, but not so good at the accepting individuals. You know, how do you make sure that people accept those accountabilities, you know? So what approaches do you think we might consider here?
Well, there's two aspects to it, really, isn't there? There's the formal documented elements of roles and responsibilities and allocation, and then there's the people side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So the formally documented part of it might be about just simply reviewing organization hierarchy, who's in what team. They look like they've got the right skill sets. I'll allocate this work to them.
Yeah.
So that's one simple way of going forward, and just simply sending out work instructions or whatever to individuals.
So in the case study, would you actually think about who should be doing what responsibilities, like specific characters?
There won't be, or is unlikely to be, sufficient information to say that this person should do that task.
Okay.
But what you can do is say, well, this is the approach I would take, is to go through the organization chart. I've started to learn who the individuals are. I can map people to work. Okay, yeah. So you can suggest the approach without having to name specific individuals. You will have some of the more senior people in the organization charts. So it might be that there's a case for introducing some of those people into the project. But what you have to bear in mind is you're coming in as a contract project manager. Are you now going to start getting a head of department to report to you? Probably not. So what you have to think about is, well, given that I know the areas of work and I'm establishing the teams that should be involved, my next step would be to have that discussion, or to sit down and do a desktop exercise. So that's one way of doing it, is just simply looking at the people that are available and their skill sets, and then mapping them to the work. You could further develop that into a RACI. So you can set out clearly on a RACI diagram who's doing what and the levels of authority they have, so whether they're accountable or responsible. But the other part of it is as I said, the people side. So it's one thing to issue a work instruction to you to do something, but if you are not bought into it, if you don't understand the relevance, if you don't think it's appropriate to you, if it's not a priority to you, it's not going to get done. Yeah. So the other part is sitting down with people, be that in a workshop or perhaps one-to-one, and discussing the roles and responsibilities needed in the project and which ones you can take on.
So that gives you the two options, doesn't it? In terms of critical evaluate, you know.
Yes. So evaluate which is more appropriate here. Is it better for you as PM to do that desktop exercise of looking at roles and responsibilities and mapping them across, or is it better for you to actually get the team together into a workshop, discuss the role definitions, and get people to accept and buy into what they're doing? Yeah,
you're making me. I'm just launching a rebranding project here, and I've been totally autocratic. I've just told people what they're going to do.
There's a time and a place for it.
Yeah. Well, I wrote a project management plan. I said, you're doing this, but I've actually asked them whether they want to do it, given them the choice to say yes or no. But we have got a workshop, you see, so we've got a workshop on Friday to go through it with everybody. So, but you need a bit of both, don't you? It depends on, it's a different position, isn't it? If you're coming in as a contract project manager, you probably need a more consultative approach than a little bit less autocratic approach.
And that's a theme that applies through many of the different parts of the assessment. Is you're coming in as an external contract project manager, seconded into this organization.
Yeah.
So you need to think about how you're going to get the organization to adopt these great processes and techniques and tools that you have experience in and they've never really used.
Yeah.
So, it's one thing is putting the systems and processes in place, but the other part is winning hearts and minds of people to ensure that there's buy-in and commitment,
Yeah.
taking into consideration the stage the project's at and the problems they've already encountered.
Yeah. Good. And can let's just move on to the last one because we're doing quite well for time. Could you critically evaluate ways to establish and maintain the reporting hierarchies and structure during the life of the project? I think we've all been here where we've started the project with good intentions, we've drawn an organisation chart, we've done a RACI chart, and we've circulated it, but then people just don't, we don't maintain it, we don't embed it, and we don't review it as the project moves forward. So I expect that's what this is about here, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Just what it's not about, because this has happened in the past that people have fallen into misunderstanding this. It's not about the levels of report that you send internally, as in a progress report that goes to the team or is shared with the team,
Okay,
and a
yeah.
report that goes to the senior management team. This is about the lines of reporting.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's keeping with the theme of the previous two, that it's about roles and responsibilities and accountabilities and
Yeah.
how they can change during the life of a project.
It's
So how
interesting.
often do people actually, or project managers, write a RACI or draw a RACI, put it into their project management plan and never look at it again?
Yeah.
This is saying, well, the project's going to progress. You're going to get more people coming in at different points. You're going to get different people dropping out and new ones coming in. So your roles and responsibilities are going to change, and your RACI will change.
Yeah.
As you get to certain parts of the project, the nature of the work you're doing will alter, and therefore you might need tighter or looser control in terms of reporting than you've had previously. So if there's a particularly critical part coming up, like safety or legally challenging areas, then you might want to introduce tighter controls and different reporting. So introducing somebody into the hierarchy that perhaps wasn't there before. That could be appropriate to do. So what are you going to do to maintain your reporting structure and your hierarchy to keep it appropriate to the governance of the project and the organization?
Yeah, I mean, the best example of that is when you bring in the main contractor to do some work, be an IT project or a construction project. You go from that sort of small team to appointing a main contractor.
Yes.
You clearly at that point need to review your whole reporting arrangements and what the hierarchies are.
Yeah,
You mentioned reporting, actual progress reporting. I think this is an important point, actually. Well, let me check this. I think that's an important role in supporting this maintenance of those accountabilities. So by sitting around the table with everybody and saying, have you done your work package each week? You're reinforcing those accountabilities in the RACI chart, but it supports this objective. It's not what this objective is about.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you if you do a RACI chart and you never go back to the responsible person and hold them to account, then that's not going to maintain those and establish those hierarchies that you established on that piece of paper. You have to bring them to life, don't you?
You do, absolutely. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So 3 learning outcomes. The first one's quite broad, is about how do you fit your governance structures into the governance structures in the case study, recognizing the type of organization, whether it's a sort of dedicated project team, a matrix, or a functional team, and what sort of overall governance structures should you wrap around that team.
Yeah.
Second one is how do you define and develop the responsibilities of those individuals within that team, aspect including the sponsor and project manager and work package managers, etc. And RACI chart is one way of doing that, but sort of terms of reference is another way of doing that, just depending how formal the organisation is. And the second one is how do you review and establish and maintain those accountabilities as the project evolves and grows, and how do you keep people focused on their accountabilities as you deliver the project?
Yeah. Third one, not second.
Sorry, third one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's going to be written, so you need to be really clear, because you're not going to get a nice assessor like you saying, oh, actually, do you want to just do that again, Paul, or explain that slightly differently? You just basically have to write this out.
So within the oral part, in the oral part, you could get some follow-up probing, clarifying questions, but as you said, in this you don't.
This is one of the set homeworks in the sample course, isn't it? This is one of the sample questions that people get to do in the course anyway. So
and which you get feedback on, and then the opportunity to discuss at a later date as well.
I think I've actually written a model answer for this one too, which I don't know if that helps because people just copy the model answer.
That's what you need to be careful of with model answers.
People go, oh, I'll just reword it. So, but anyway.
Yes, I'll learn the answer. You're not going to do that for all of them.
Yeah, but it's a different case study in a real project.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.